What is up, you guys? Welcome back to the show. And today I want to talk to you about how to price your woodworking or handmade products. Let's dive in. Well, hey, welcome back. So grateful for your time and your attention as always. Today I want to talk to you about how to price your products. Now, this is one of the most commonly asked questions that I see lots of makers have when they're really starting to get into this as a business. They're trying to figure out how to sell stuff on a consistent basis. They're trying to figure out, how do I price this in a way that, number one, I can actually sell it, and number two, that I can make some profit on it, right? Because if you sell it for nothing, well, you'll sell stuff, but then you're not going to make any money. You're going to be spinning your wheels. But if you outpace the market, then you're going to price stuff really high and no one's going to buy. Okay, so we want to find that sweet spot of how to price our products. Now, this is going to be a shorter video, but it's going to be pretty valuable. And so in this video, this is also episode 104 on the podcast. In episode 105 on the podcast, we're going to be talking about how to increase your prices. So we're going to talk about how to price to start, but then ultimately, how do we continue to increase our prices so that we're making better margins along the way? We're bringing home more of that money with each product that we make, okay? So to start, this is kind of what I look at when I'm trying to price my products, okay? Kind of my benchmark, but this is where I'm currently at in business. And I have more overhead than a lot of you guys are going to have more employees than a lot of you guys have. And so for me, I don't want to spend any more than 30% on material costs, okay? So if I know that I'm building this table, for example, I want to look at how much do the legs cost me? How much does the table skirt wood cost me? How much does the paint cost me? How much does the wood for the top, the lacquer, the stain? I want to compile a list of my approximate costs, material costs in this product. And now, generally speaking, a table like the one I'm sitting at right now, it has 4 turned legs. It's got an oak tabletop. It's got a painted base, a stain and lacquered top. I've probably got around $300 to $325 in this table. So I don't want to price this for any less than about $1,000 to $1,100, this table. Now, we've gotten to where we've actually gotten our prices up a little bit more than that, but we didn't start there. So one of the biggest things I can tell you when it comes to pricing your products is what can you do to increase the perceived value around your product? What can you do to increase the perceived value? So for example, if I made the same table and everything was made out of southern pine, well, it's a soft wood, right? Most of the small guys that I was competing with when I started, they're using Home Depot or Lowe's wood, right? They're going and getting 2x8s or 2x10s to glue together to make the tabletop. It's all pine, it's soft. If you took a hammer and hit it, it would dent. So how do I set myself apart, and how do I increase the perceived value around what I'm doing? So we offer southern pine tables, but then our next step is we want to offer an oak tabletop or a maple or a walnut tabletop. And what that allows us to do is it allows us to put us in more of a premium tier to where we're honestly not spending that much more money to get the oak for the tabletop as opposed to the pine. Our costs really aren't that much more. But the beautiful thing about that is that I'm able to charge astronomically more because it's a hardwood top. It has a very high perceived value. So that's really, really important. But to start off, you want to try to make sure that your material costs are around 30% of what you're selling the product for, okay? So if you're building a table, for example, material costs are $300. You don't want to sell it for any less than $1,000. You want to make sure that your material costs are around 30%. So what's the formula, and how do you do this? How do you calculate this easily? So what you do is you take your material costs. So if you know your material costs are $1,000, you go 1,000 in your calculator divided by 0.3. And so 1,000 divided by 0.3 is going to tell you what your sales price for the product should be. That is if you also have relatively high labor costs. So I know that I'm going to have to put this whole thing together. I've got to paint it. It's going to take me some time to do all this. Let's say, for example, that you could just buy a table wholesale from somebody else and flip it, and immediately you don't have to do any work to it. You would be like a retail business or an established retail store. Well, they're trying to buy stuff and sell it at 2 times. They've got 50% in the materials, right? So like they say, you're not the manufacturer, you're buying it from a manufacturer, and you just have a store that you're flipping, doubling the price and then selling it. Well, you didn't have to do any work, so you didn't have any labor costs. So if I'm the one manufacturing it and it's like high labor and high material, I want my material cost to be around 30%. I want my labor cost to be around 20%. That's if I have to do a lot of work. Now, let's say, for example, that you're selling like a modern table with metal legs, okay? And all you have to do is make the top and attach the legs to it. You don't have to do any work on the legs. They come, they're ready, they just need to be attached. Well, you don't have super high labor costs in that. You've got labor costs in building the top, but it's pretty minimal compared to it, you building an entire table from scratch. In those scenarios, I'd be willing to allow my material costs, including the cost of the legs and the cost of the tabletop, to be around 40%. But I usually don't want to be any more than that, if that makes sense. The other thing I would say is that your pricing can't outpace your branding. If you have crazy astronomical prices on your website for your stuff, but you have really like old pixelated pictures, people aren't going to buy that. If you have an old outdated logo, an outdated website, if you have terrible customer service, if your product just isn't good, your branding has to justify your prices. You have to have gone above and beyond to create a strong brand, create an incredible customer experience. And if you can't do that, then you're not going to be able to justify having higher prices. So when you're first starting out, you probably aren't super strong on the branding game. You probably don't have refined processes for your customer experience. So what you want to do is you always want to start a little bit lower on the pricing grade. So like my current business, we're doing anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000 a month. These are the numbers that we focus on. Material costs at 30% if there's high labor, material costs at 40% if there's low labor, and then 20% in labor costs. Again, that 20% is on the high labor. You want your material costs on your low labor stuff to be like 10%. You don't want to be in a product for any more than 50% of what you're selling it for in regards to labor and materials, okay? Because then you're going to have to pay yourself, you're going to have to pay marketing. There's going to be multiple things that you've got to cover. I want to encourage you when you're just getting started that you need to probably price a little bit lower than this. If you're just getting started, nobody knows who you are. If you're the one doing all the work as well, then I would say that you could let your material costs be 40% on high labor products as well, because you're literally, other than your marketing costs, if you have any, you're going to be profiting all of that 60%. If you're the one doing the work, then you're paying yourself for the labor, and then anything above and beyond that, you're getting to keep as well. I told you this would be a relatively short episode. Hopefully this has been helpful to you. If you have questions about pricing, I would love to answer them. I try to respond to all the comments below. So leave me a comment. Let me know what your pricing strategy is and if it's working for you, or if you feel like there's something that you can improve on. I promise you that I'll engage with you in the comment section. So with that being said, guys, love you, appreciate you. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet, and we'll see you in the next one.